This is another sign of the times, an analysis and a commentary. Hurricane Sandy causes massive devastation. The New York region and the East Coast are beginning the daunting process of rebuilding after a storm that remade the landscape and rewrote the record books as it left behind a massive amount of damage, destruction, and grief. The toll in lives disrupted or lost and communities washed out was staggering. A rampaging fire reduced at least 111 houses to ash in Breezy Point, Queens. Explosions and downed power lines left the lower half of Manhattan and 90% of Long Island in the dark. The New York City subway system, a lifeline for millions, was paralyzed by flooded tunnels and was expected to remain silent for days. Accidents claimed more than 40 lives in the United States and Canada. The storm delivered rain and high winds all the way to the Great Lakes, where freighters were at a standstill in waves 2 stories tall. It left snow in Appalachia, power failures in Maine, and untreated sewage pouring into a river in Maryland after a treatment plant lost power. President Obama approved disaster declarations for New York and New Jersey, making them eligible for federal assistance for rebuilding. All of us have been shocked by the force of Mother Nature, said the president. He promised all available resources for recovery efforts. This is going to take some time, he said. It is not going to be easy for these communities to recover. There was no immediate estimate of the losses from the storm, but the scope of the damage, covering more than half a dozen states, pointed to billions and billions of dollars. Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey called it incalculable. Rescuers looked for survivors in the wet rubble in places like Atlantic City, and state and local officials surveyed wreckage. Utility crews began working their way through a wilderness of fallen trees and power lines. And from Virginia to Connecticut, there were stories of tragedy and survival, of people who lost everything when the water rushed in, of buildings that crumbled after being pounded hour after hour by rain and relentless wind, of hospitals that had to be evacuated when the storm knocked out the electricity. The president spoke with 20 governors and mayors on a conference call, and the White House said the president would survey damage from the storm with Mr. Christie. Mr. Obama's press secretary said the president would join Mr. Christie, who has been one of his harshest Republican critics, in talking with storm victims and thanking first responders. Mayor Michael R. Bloomberg said Mr. Obama had also offered to visit the city, but I think the thing for him to do is to go to New Jersey and represent the country. Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York reopened many closed roads and bridges, and the New York Stock Exchange made plans to resume floor trading after a 2-day shutdown, its first because of weather since a blizzard in 1888. There were no traffic signals on the walk from 5th Avenue to the East River. Police officers were directing traffic. Here and there, bodegas were open, selling batteries and soft drinks. In Times Square, a few tourists walked around, though some hotels still had sandbags by the doors. Mr. Bloomberg said 7,000 trees had been knocked down in city parks. Stay away from city parks, he said. They're closed until further notice. The mayor also said that trick-or-treating was fine for Halloween, but the parade in Greenwich Village had been canceled. The organizers said it was the first time in the parade's 39-year history that it had been called off. New York's subway network, which suffered the worst damage in its 108 100-year history, faced one of its longest shutdowns because the problems were so much worse than expected. Water climbed to the ceiling of the South Ferry subway station, the end of the number 1 line, in Lower Manhatten, and debris covered tracks and stations up and down other lines after the water rushed in and out. The Metro-North Railroad had no power north of 59th Street on 2 of its 3 lines. The Long Island Railroad's west side yards had to be evacuated, and 2 railroad tunnels beneath the East River were flooded in the storm. The Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, officially the Hugh L. Carey Tunnel, and the Queens Midtown Tunnel also remained impassable. Airports, too, took a beating. More than 15,000 flights were canceled, and water poured onto the runways at Kennedy International Airport and LaGuardia Airport, both in Queens. Officials made plans to reopen Kennedy, the larger of the 2, and a major departure point for international flights from southern New Jersey to the east end of Long Island to the northern suburbs in Connecticut. Power companies spent Tuesday trying to figure out just how much damage the storm had done to their wires, transformers, and substations. The work will take at least a week, possibly longer, because the damage was so extensive, and utility companies called in thousands of crews from all around the country to help out. Consolidated Edison reached to San Francisco to bring in 150 workers from Pacific Gas and Electric. Even with the additional manpower, Con Edison said it could still take more than 10 days to complete the repairs. Con Edison had more than 285,000 customers in Manhattan who are in the dark, and more than 185,000 in Westchester. Things were worse east of New York City, where nearly 1 million customers of the Long Island Power Authority did not have power. In New Jersey, Public Service Electric and Gas said it had 1.3 million electric customers in the dark, including 500,000 without power because a surge flooded substations and other equipment. Another New Jersey utility, Jersey Central Power and Light, whose territory covers many shore towns, said almost all of its customers had lost power in some counties. More than 1/3 of Connecticut Light and Power's 1.2 million customers had no electricity. The fire in Breezy Point, Queens, leveled scores of houses, and flooded streets in the area prevented firefighters from reaching the blaze, a fire department spokesman said, and the mayor, who toured the area, said the neighborhood was devastated. To describe it as looking like pictures we have seen at the end of World War II is not overstating it, the mayor said. In other words, this was a massive, destructive storm, the likes of that has never been seen before exactly. And this could be a sign of more extreme weather still to come. Everything is connected, and everything is numbered. And this too is another sign of the end of times as we know them, transition days, which is a time of extraordinary happenings, changes, and events, because it's about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations. And again, that should be a very important question to ask. Mark chapter 13, verse 7. And when ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, be ye not troubled, for such things must needs be, but the end shall not be yet. 8. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be earthquakes in diverse places, and there shall be famines and troubles. These are the beginnings of sorrows. Luke chapter 21, verse 20. 25. And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. 26. Humans' hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. 27. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud, with power and great glory. 28. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near. Revelation chapter 22, verse 12. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every human according as his work shall be. 13. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. It's time for prophecy to be fulfilled, and all these are more signs.